On everyone. So John Collins and the Atlanta Hawks seem to be heading for a divorce. At this point, it kind of feels more of a matter of when, not if, John Collins will be traded. I mean, he's been part of trade rumors and the Atlanta Hawks for years now, right? And this year, he's just really not fitting in. He's just really not shooting the ball the same. He just kind of seems out of sorts for Atlanta. Atlanta really is looking for some size on the wing, some more three-point shooting, and trying to improve their roster because they're just not having a very good season this year. And there are several teams that are in the market for John Collins, but one team that has came to light recently that I actually think makes a lot of sense for John Collins and could actually be a really interesting fit to the team is the Indiana Pacers. So it has been reported that the Indiana Pacers are heavily considering trading for John Collins. Now, there is a lot of questions with Miles Turner. This would give at least some insurance as far as bigs go, right? I mean, this would help a bit if they were to lose Miles Turner. Now, obviously, he's not a center, but again, you have some size. You still have guys like, Jalen Smith. You could kind of go the younger route if you wanted to go that route. But for the most part, if you can keep Miles Turner and add, a John Collins to the mix, I mean, imagine, Benedict Mathurin, Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, and John Collins, as well as, Buddy Hield. Like, that would be a very nice, just kind of just team in general. They could really provide a lot, especially if John Collins can get anywhere back to form that he was the past several seasons, because this guy was a real factor for Atlanta, especially on their run to the Eastern Conference Finals. Although I think that was like Atlanta's biggest downfall personally. I think the biggest mistake Atlanta did was making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Not that your job is to get there, your job is to win, but I think that it made them believe that they were better than they really were. And I think it made them believe okay, we're only a piece or two away. And then they end up going and get DeJounte Murray. And it's kind of like the same thing that the Minnesota Timberwolves did, right? Like, they felt like, oh, we're right there, we're good enough to be good. And instead of kind of, keeping the ship steady and just trying to find a solid piece or two to fill in, they went for a home run play, but it was the wrong home run play. And, it ended up neutralizing their team. Same thing with Atlanta, right? They had the ship was heading in a good direction. You just kind of fill it out. And instead, they were like, oh, let's go get DeJounte Murray so that, Trae Young could play off the ball more. And I just think it just kind of threw everything in a mess. And I don't think they're going to trade Trae Young, although I think that the team currently constructed is actually better for DeJounte Murray than it is for Trae Young as far as Atlanta goes. But John Collins, their hope is okay, we trade John Collins, get some size out on the perimeter, or get some perimeter guys, and maybe we could kind of turn this around. And that, luckily, is what Indiana has, right? I mean, Indiana has everything. Like, they have a really bright future for this team. This team has exceeded expectations in so many ways. And you're probably looking at something like a Chris Duarte, something like that, package around him, which is fine. He's not having the best season ever, but he's a guy that has shown some real promise. It's his second year, if I'm not mistaken, and he is an older player. He's 25, but that's good because Atlanta's more in a rebuild, or not. Indiana's in more of a rebuild mode than what Atlanta is, right? Atlanta, they believe that they're right there, right? They just need to just retinker a little bit, where you have a really young, solid core with Indiana that is playing really good basketball, don't get me wrong, but I don't think anyone, and even Indiana, I don't think they believe that they're going to win the championship this year, or that they're competing for a championship this year. I think the idea is we get some solid pieces, we're going to have tons of cap space. If we can retain Miles Turner, great. If we can't, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. We get a John Collins, you have Tyrese Halliburton, you have, Benedict Mathurin, maybe you move Buddy Hield in the offseason if you lose Miles Turner. If not, then you basically have those five going forward. You still have a lot of solid young guys in Jalen Smith, TJ McCollum. I imagine some other young pieces are going to go out, right? But my thinking is that this trade will probably center around Chris Duarte. Some assets. Maybe they do give up a Jalen Smith in the process as well, because you're going to have to make it an incentive for John Collins. And right now, they're asking, Atlanta wants a Rudy Gobert type package for John Collins, which I don't think they're going to get for John Collins. But I do think that the Indiana Pacers could put a nice little piece around, and they just have a huge plethora of just guards and shooting guards, right? They have kind of undersized guards playing small forward, right? Like Chris Duarte is pretty much their small forward, and he's 6'5", which, I mean, it's not like a 6'3" guy, but still, you would want somebody with more size in the wing. So I imagine that that's something Indiana would look to in the offseason, right? You go get John Collins now. Hopefully you re-sign Miles Turner, and then you try to find some size on the wing if you can. And you'd have more than enough scoring, more than enough floor spacing, more than enough shooting, especially Buddy Hield. Mathurin has really kind of came into form. Tyrese is, playing phenomenal basketball. So I think you basically have the overall structure of your team moving forward. If you're Indiana, now you're just trying to fill in the pieces. And having a front court of Miles Turner and John Collins would be absolutely solid. And then if you could just go get another solid piece or two as far as wing depth goes, then you're hitting a home run. And now maybe Indiana could really start making some deep runs, start filling out that roster, start getting some depth on the bench. And I think that this could be a huge addition for the Indiana Pacers. I think John Collins to Indiana could really be a game changer for them in many ways, especially if he can get back to being that John Collins, which with Tyrese, I imagine he can, right? I think a lot of it is just he's kind of the odd man out now, and he's kind of like that other guy rather than being like a part of the system, right? And it's just really clunky in Atlanta. Like when you watch their games, no one really has or seems to have a definitive role, right? Nobody seems to really know what is going on there. And it's just kind of all over the place at times. Like you watch some of Atlanta's games and it's just, it's rough. And I just think, Indiana's really flowing. Everyone, it's the opposite in Indiana. Like everyone knows their role. Everyone knows what their job is. Everyone knows what they're going to do. Also, the other question is if they go and they do trade for John Collins, do they move Miles Turner if they're worried that they can't re-sign him? Like, do you really want to lose Miles Turner for nothing? So maybe John Collins is kind of like that other fit. Like, okay, well, we'll just go, Jalen Smith if you don't trade him, and maybe John Collins, something like that. I don't know, maybe. But I mean, ideally, you keep Miles Turner. You have John Collins, you have this really great structured team, and you're off to the races. That would be what would be ideal. Now, whatever draft compensation, that's what will be worked out. But I imagine Chris Duarte is going to be the centerpiece in this trade, in some type of trade, which I don't think is bad. I mean, they've had like Nesmith. He's actually shown some real promise for Indiana. I think he's a piece that could really do something. Brissett. I think he has, promise too. He's got some good size. I think he's a guy that, if given an opportunity and given a chance to just grow and develop, I think he could be another quality piece. But you got to imagine some of these young guys are going to go out. I don't think it's just going to be like Chris Duarte and, Daniel Tice and a bunch of firsts. I think you're probably going to have to give up quite a bit because they want a lot for John Collins, and I do think there are teams that would give up, a decent package for John Collins. It's just going to come down to who can create the best package. And I think Indiana is definitely a real landing spot, and definitely a team that, I mean, they have basically everything. They have their picks, they have other picks, they have tons of cap space. They have, they could even take in Nesmith, or they could take in Daniel Tice, and still have cap space. Like, they'd be fine. So it is a very interesting move. It is a move that I think, I definitely think makes them better. And it would just be fun to watch. I would love to see, them kind of just having him and Miles Turner with Halliburton, and them just kind of creating and him setting these guys up. I just think would just be a lot of fun. I think John Collins really adds another type of level to this team, another layer that they don't currently have, especially at the power forward position. I just think that he really could make a difference for this team. I think he could be a huge difference maker, especially if he can get back to being the John Collins that we know he can be. Because that John Collins was great. So if he can be that guy then I really think I wouldn't be surprised if they, surprise the team or two, right, come playoff time. I mean, I do think this is a team that's going to make the playoffs. I do think this is a team that is going to be fun to watch, right, come playoff time. But I really don't think they're beating anyone significant right now. But you add a John Collins, right? I think that makes it very interesting. And he's still very young, right? He's 25. So, you get a guy that can come in and really kind of provide that type of youth, athleticism, defense, shooting. I mean, he's had seasons where he shot 40%, multiple seasons where he shot 40% from three. And even last season, he shot 36, 37%. So if he can just get back to that, just get back to 36, 37%, because this season he's shooting something atrocious, shooting like 25%. So if he can get back to like, the mid 30s to high 30s, Indiana would be something else. And maybe a change of scenery, new fresh environment, a team that's just playing good basketball right now. I think that could really help. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Would you want Indiana to trade for John Collins? Is that something that you're all for? Is it something that you're not? Whatever your thoughts are. Do you think that this is a move that really makes them better and moves the needle a bit for them? Like, I don't think it makes them a contender yet, but I do think that this is a team that is moving in that direction if they go get a guy like John Collins. But how do you feel? Let me know down in the comment section.